Welcome once again and thanks for watching. We're into the third part of a three-part series on uncertainty, worry and certainty. I'm trying to give you the opportunity to see how a Christian using God's own book, the Bible, sees and deals with the world in turmoil. If you haven't seen the other two parts to this, they're on our YouTube channel. Just look for Gisborough Christian Fellowship. It gives you an idea how Christians work and some of the sermons that we've been speaking into our church about. Thanks for listening.
Certainty. In life, we as human beings love certainties. Ask any person who goes into a betting shop, and at any time, and any given time, they will give you a particular winning combination, be it dogs, horses or whatever. But these punters have a certainty that this win, which will obviously come, will be their fortune maker. Unfortunately, many of their certainties never come true, and many will walk away penniless. You see, we all have different views of certainties. The financial institutions of the USA and the UK may be a place that we can rely on, but as history tells us, if we have a foundation that's based on money and debt, we're in a very precarious situation. We're vulnerable. As we know, the markets fluctuate massively. They're unpredictable and volatile. England has had many financial meltdowns, as the USA of course, and all around the world. The last one was caused by the coronavirus in 2020. So if we can't rely on money, we can't rely on the financial institutions, well, what can we rely on? I believe you can only build your certainties from a solid foundation. I was always told, put your money into bricks and mortar. In other words, buy a house. The prices on the housing market have been steadily increasing since we started to build houses. But even then you have to look where you're building and what you're building. Do you really want to build a house on a floodplain, for instance? What you want is a house that will last. A house built on solid foundations. I was reading about the Shard in London, a huge epitaph to man's engineering prowess. Some statistics, for instance, tell us that it's 309.6 metres high. It's split into 95 levels. It was designed by a famous Italian designer, Renzo Piano. It's a feat of modern engineering, overcoming all the obstacles that were put in its way. The foundations, for instance, are 60 metres deep. They comprise of 52 metres of concrete steel reinforced piles, a metre wide. And there's hundreds of these, maybe thousands. And then it's capped off by a solid 3-metre slab of concrete, cast in one continuous cast so that there was no cracks or variations in its thickness or strength. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the reason why these foundations were so colossal to support this massive building was because the whole building is built on an unstable layer of sand.
Matthew 7 verses 24 to 27. The wise and foolish builders. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash.
Rachel was reading there from Matthew's Gospel book of the Bible. And you can see the sense in the reading from Matthew's book. But my Bible has many instances of sound advice. It's a book for life, really. The book is full of information on how to live our lives here on earth, worldly, sensible advice. From the first book called Genesis, which means beginning, to the last book called Revelations, 66 books in all full of good, sensible advice. There are sections devoted on how to live, a guidance. There is a book in the Bible called Deuteronomy. It's a bit of a mouthful. And it gives us specific guidance that was wrote a few thousand years ago, but yet it's still relevant today. You've probably heard of, even if you don't know them, the Ten Commandments, which was given by God. And I'll just give you 3 here. For instance, do not commit adultery, do not commit murder, do not steal. 3. Sensible advice. Deuteronomy also gives us guidance on what animals and fish are good to eat. It tells us about divorce and marriage. There's even a section on how to deal with mildew in your house. Good solid advice. The book also has a verse that says these words, and this is God speaking here. Be determined and confident. Do not be afraid. Your God, the Lord himself, will be with you. He will never fail you or abandon you. We all want a friend like that. And that's what becoming a Christian leads us into. It leads us into a fellowship, a friendship with God. And this friend will never let you down. As a Christian, I know that God doesn't back out on his promises, and that is a promise. Is a God that will never fail us or abandon us not worth having a look at? Is that not a good, stable foundation for building friendship, fellowship, and your life upon? There are many quotes in the Bible because the Bible is a book that builds your confidence. Nothing in the Bible will suppress you. It's all designed to elevate you, to lift you, to make you feel better and not worse, even though there's some parts in it reprimand us if we stray away, really. God would rather say, well done, rather than you could have done better. God wants you to trust him. In another book written by a friend of Jesus, he writes, how do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? And none of us do. None of us know that. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It is here a little while, then it's gone. The bloke who wrote that There's a guy called James, a friend of Jesus. And James is stating the obvious. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. That is an uncertainty. But we have a certainty that God will be with us. We can't see into the future. But the Bible also tells us in God's own words, I alone know the plans I have for you. And I believe before I became a Christian, God had a plan for me. When I look back, I was guided not by coincidences, but by God incidences. God had his hand on me before I knew anything about it. You see, God is just waiting for you to come on board. He has a life organised for you, and it's a life built on solid ground. Yeah, it's to become a Christian is quite an easy step. You just ask Jesus to come into your life. You ask Jesus to walk with you each day. It's an easy thing, but it's a journey with Jesus. If you'd like to know more, visit our Facebook channel. You can look on our website, and or follow us on the YouTube channel. All these links will put you in touch with someone you can talk to. I'm not touting for business here, but I would enjoy speaking to you and trying to answer some of your questions. I will never be able to answer all your questions. In the front of my Bible, I wrote, "Be patient, God hasn't finished with me yet. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it." But when you have a walk with Jesus, that's exactly what it is. It's a walk through life with a friend. It's a journey of discovery. Are you ready to begin that journey? Do you want a house built on sand, which changes? Or do you want a house that's built on rock? Do you want to build your life on worldly values? Or do you want to build your life on the God who built the world? There's a massive difference there. Do you want to build your life on worldly values, the things of this world? Or do you want to build your life on God who built this world? Thanks for listening. Bye.
Matthew 7 verses 24 to 27. The wise and foolish builders. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash.